Hi, I'm Brooke Stratton, Olympic and Commonwealth Games representative, as well as the current Australian record holder for the long jump. You're listening to Little Athletics Victoria's The Athletics Journey podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of Little Athletics Victoria's podcast, The Athletics Journey. Hosted by me, Lachlan Rayner, this podcast aims to delve into the mindsets of current and former athletes who have made their start in little athletics. We quickly learn that the journey to success for any individual doesn't come without a myriad of highs and lows. This podcast aims to uncover these stories and hopefully give a unique insight into the individual themselves. We're extremely excited about our guest on today's episode. She has already represented the country on numerous occasions, including the 2016 Rio Olympic Games and the 2018 Commonwealth Games. Having started her athletics career at the Nunawading Little Athletics Centre, as a 5-year-old, she has continued to develop as a long jumper and currently holds the Australian record for this event. And without any further ado, I welcome Brooke Stratton to the podcast, the Athletics Journey podcast. Thanks, Brooke, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And you're fresh off a session. We are here at Athletics House, so where all the athletics bodies here are in Victoria. You have just come across straight from the VIS, had a bit of a training session this morning. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, so I just had a gym session this morning. Basically, I spend 2 days a week in at the VIS. 2 gym sessions, Monday, Wednesday. Today was a strength-based session, so feeling a little bit tired at the moment, but looking forward to having a chat.
Cool. Well, we'll get right in. So for those who are listening may not necessarily know your story or a lot about you, can you just briefly tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm 26 years of age. I grew up in Melbourne, Victoria. I have 3 siblings who also spent a bit of time competing in track and field. I recently completed a Bachelor of Health Sciences at Deakin Uni. Work part-time as well on the side. I'm an Olympic athlete. Very
good. So you obviously fit a fair bit in around, training to be a professional athlete. How has it changed? You're a little bit out of school now, but how has it changed having university and I guess a part-time job? How has that changed your athletics mindset?
It has been challenging at times. I think for me, athletics is definitely my priority. And especially over the last year, starting a bit of part-time work, I've realised that a little bit of my focus has shifted towards other things, which I feel, I had to make a couple of changes, drop back my work hours a little bit. I recently just finished uni as well. So I think for me moving forward now with Tokyo not too far away, I think I just have to make sure that, athletics is the priority and I'm doing everything right. I'm not putting too much on my plate so that I'm stressing out, most days. So I think it's important to have distractions, but, you got to make sure that the athletics is, the priority.
Yeah, definitely. So we are a little athletics podcast, so it would be reminiscent of me not to ask about how you got your athletics journey started. It was down at the Nunawading Little Athletics track. We were talking just before we started this podcast. You started in, I think a lot of our centres do like a underage sort of race at the end of the competition just to keep the siblings that have sat around the track for 2.5 hours just to give them something to do. So I think you were there as maybe a 4-year-old running around while your brother was participating.
Yeah, so my older brother Jamie started little athletics when he was in the under 6 age group. So obviously I was about 3 or 4 years of age when I would go along and watch him. I was too young to obviously start little athletics, so I got involved in this underage race until I was old enough to start actually competing. So when I was in under 6, I began my little athletics journey and absolutely loved every minute of it. The friends that you make along the way, and it was just so much fun, just rocking up to little athletics and having all your friends around and just trying to strive to get better and better each week. It was really enjoyable.
I'm throwing you under the bus a bit here. Do you remember any athletes that competed or you participated with at Little Aths that have gone on to, you've remained friends with or have gone on to sharing Olympic Commonwealth Games teams?
So through Little Athletics, not a lot of the athletes that I sort of went through Little Athletics ranks with actually still doing it. However, my best friend, Ali Tom, she competed for Sunbury through Little Athletics. And yeah, as I said, she's my best friend still to this day. And, I still keep in touch with a lot of friends that I made through Little Athletics. So I think it's important you make lifelong friends through the sport. So yeah, it's really just about enjoying it at that young age and trying to make as many friends as you can.
And you've already achieved so much in your athletics career. You mentioned off the top you're only 26, been to an Olympic Games, been to a Commonwealth Games. What are your current athletics ambitions? So no doubt you set yourself a number of goals, whether they be short term or long term. Can you share some of these? Yeah,
so my number one goal at the moment is really just to jump a PB. It's been over 3 years that I've jumped a PB, which I think sometimes, it's hard on the confidence, but I'm trying to do everything I can to get back to jumping that sort of distance. But obviously with the World Championships ahead and the Olympic Games next year, I would absolutely love to win a medal at either of these championships. So they're definitely a goal for me. I know that it sounds like a huge goal, but I feel like, if I can get back into 7 metre shape, anything's possible.
And do you remember with these ambitions, can you recall or think of anything that Little Athletics or what role Little Athletics played in forming these ambitions?
I think with Little Athletics, you're always surrounded by athletes that are not only your age group, but older athletes, and I think just being surrounded by athletes that have achieved, fantastic things, it definitely sets your sights on, being in their position one day. And when I was younger, I went to a few like Telstra A series meets, and I'd go along and watch some of the best athletes in Australia compete there. And I think, that sort of exposure is, what you need, to have people inspire you. So I think, just being a part of the sport and taking interest in athletes that are doing fantastic things, it's definitely very inspiring.
Who did you look up to growing up?
So when I was really young, I watched Cathy Freeman win a gold medal for Australia at the Sydney 2000 Olympics. That really inspired me, and I remember being in primary school and people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I used to just say Cathy Freeman. Like it was
That's
as simple
Cathy
as that.
Freeman.
Yeah, I just wanted to be Cathy Freeman. But as I sort of moved towards, focusing more towards long jump, I really looked up to Bronwyn Thompson, who was the previous Australian record holder, and I just wanted to jump as far as what she did, and also Sally Pearson. I think she's a fantastic role model for the sport, and she's overcome so many hard times and injuries, and I think having someone like that overcome them and achieve the success she achieved, it's really inspirational.
And you must have had, or still do, no doubt, have a great support network around you. We'll touch on your father, who's your coach, just after this, but parents, brothers, where did you get the talent? Sisters, where did you get the talent from?
Well, I think if you ask my mum, she'll probably say it's from her, and if you ask my dad, he'll probably say it's from him. But no, both my parents grew up playing a lot of sport. My mum played netball, and she was a really good footballer as well, actually. And my dad was a really good cricketer and footballer. So very active parents, and my 3 siblings as well as myself, represented Australia at a national level. But I think with me, I just had a little bit more hunger and drive to get to that next level. But yeah, like everyone, I think, growing up, we all had each other to bounce off, and we were a very competitive family. So I think that was probably part of the reason why I'm so competitive to this day. And and I'm really passionate about sport.
And touched on it before, Russell, your father, he's been your coach the whole way through your athletics journey so far. Talk us about that, because I just recalling, and I'm nowhere near the athlete that you are, but I recall going down to training with my brothers and sisters, and it's a lot easier to say no to mum or dad than it is my personal coach. How does that work? How does that dynamic work with Russell playing, I guess, the role as your father as well as your coach?
Yeah, it has been really good. I think Dad knowing me so well as both a person and an athlete, it's been fantastic. The fact that he's been able to hold me back if he needs to, and like he knows me so much better than anyone else, really. So, there has been a lot of tough times through injuries and illness, and if it wasn't for him understanding my body and me as a person, I probably, would have struggled a lot more than what I did. But having the support from him and my mum and my siblings as well, it's been really amazing. And I think it does have its ups and downs having my dad as my coach, but there's definitely more ups than downs, and being able to travel the world with him and experience everything together, it's really special.
It would definitely make, I guess, the environment when you are traveling to, foreign countries and things like that, having someone like your father there, it makes it a bit easier, I'd imagine.
Yeah, definitely. It involves a lot of travel, this sport, and having your dad being able to travel with you, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm really lucky in that regard, and I'm looking forward to hopefully more than a few more years of it.
I'm sure you will. Talk us through a weekly training schedule for yourself. So how much time do you spend in the gym? How much time do you spend down at the VIS, down at the local track? I believe you train down at Nunawading still? Yep. At
Nunawading. So Mondays and Wednesday mornings, I'll spend roughly between an hour and a half to 2 hours in the gym. So they're the 2 days that I spend in here at the VIS. And Tuesdays is my jump session. So I'll spend just over 2 hours down at the track on a Tuesday night. Thursday night, I'll generally do a speed session. Friday's a recovery day where I get massage. I also get physio on a Wednesday at the VIS. Saturday is a run-ups, jumps and plyo session. And then Sunday's another running session. So it's a busy week, and on top of all this, like, there's obviously appointments as well that I have to attend, seeing a sports psych, dietitian, physio appointments, massage as well, and then also core strengthening and postural awareness exercises that I do as well, several times a week. So it does keep me busy, and I think at the moment the structure that I've got works really well.
And how much of that does, say, your dad play a role in versus the staff at the VIS?
So Corey, the strength and conditioning coach for track and field at VIS, he's there for all my gym sessions. So Dad will generally come in when he can, but it's just hard because he works. So when Dad's not around, Corey will look after me in the gym, and everything else is taken care of with Dad. So anything sort of jump or running related.
And how long has that schedule, I guess, taken to get to that stage? Has it varied much? Or how much has it varied in the lead up to where it is, I guess, today?
It has varied a little bit, especially through, the phases where I have had injuries. So, you have to cut back on the amount of jump sessions that you're doing, the amount of plyos that you're doing. So I think I sort of let that slip a little bit more than for a little bit longer than what I should have. And I think that may be the reason why I've sort of stagnated a little bit with my jumps distances. So we've recently after returning from Europe, just made a few changes with my overall sort of training volume. And I think it's going to make a bit of a difference. So, obviously things aren't always going to be the same. And as you get older, you need to progress things, and you might even have to hold back a little bit on certain things. It's just a matter of tweaking what you can, when you can, and just trying to figure out what works.
And growing up, it seems like you're almost invincible in terms of injury-wise, apart from the common broken bones or whatnot. Have you seen a big shift towards, I guess, the percentage of time you're spending on jumping versus now more maintenance and recovery?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're young, you don't really have a worry in the world about recovering between sessions because as you said, you're just invincible and you can honestly just do whatever you want. But since, I've had a few bony injuries over the last few years, I've had to take more control over my recovery and just making sure that I'm seeing a physio weekly and getting a weekly massage, doing all my, stretching outside of training and foam rolling and triggering. So, and you don't realise how beneficial all that is. It's, if you have a week off doing it, it's crazy the difference that it makes with how you recover in between sessions. So I think just making sure that you're putting in the time for doing all the little 1%ers, it's really important.
And you are a VIS athlete. How long have you been with them for?
I've been a scholarship holder since 2010, so it'll be 9 years now.
And you've mentioned Corey, who looks after you when you're within or doing gym sessions and things in there. Can you talk what role they play with your development?
Oh, the VIS has been absolutely fantastic. Not only do they have amazing services for us athletes, we're able to access, physio, massage, dietitian, sports psych, the list goes on, all free of charge. And I think being an athlete, there's so many external expenses, and for us to be able to, access these services without having to, pull money out of our pockets, it's so handy. And just the knowledge and advice that all of these people have, it's just, you honestly are so grateful for it. So things would have been so different, I think, if I didn't have access to the VIS. So I feel very fortunate that I'm able to go in and use the facilities as well, the gym, the recovery pool.
Can you go in whenever you like?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
I haven't been kicked out yet. Within opening hours. So we'll move on to some of the championship events that you've participated in or competed at. The first major open one was the 2015 World Championships in Beijing. Talk us through that. How did you, what was it like competing at your first major open championship? I think you had done a number of junior ones previously to that, but an open one must have been a little bit different.
Oh, it was absolutely crazy. I would have had a Commonwealth Games under my belt in 2014, but unfortunately I had a stress fracture in my back, so I had to withdraw from that competition. So it was literally just, having gone from competing at a world junior level to then being at a world, at a senior world level. And there were women that I was competing against that I'd been watching on TV. So it was just surreal, really. And I learnt so much from that experience. And I think having missed out on the final by a very small margin, it definitely gave me that motivation and hunger, to come home and put in so much hard work and just, alter a few little things with my takeoff position and my running. And that's what I did, and the following year came out and had a blinder. So it was an invaluable experience, that one.
And just for the people listening, how many people make the final of the World Championships?
So they take 12 through the final, and I finished off 14th.
And that's the same at Olympic and Commonwealth Games, or a little bit different?
Yeah, that's the same.
And you touched on the following season. So you mentioned before one of your idols growing up was Bronwyn Thompson. You broke her 14-year-old Australian record at the Perth Track Classic, which is an Australian domestic national meet.
Yep.
With a jump of 7:05. Can you remember? Well, no doubt you can remember it, but can you tell us about that day?
Oh, it was the best day of my life, to be honest. Like, I don't know, like I can't even really put into words how special that was because, I just had such a fantastic season. Like, things were just progressing extremely well. I think I had a couple of competitions where I jumped 673, 679. I had a 694 in Canberra. So I knew I was super close to that 7 metre mark, but I knew that everything would just have to come together perfectly for me to jump that sort of distance. And in Perth I had a 2.0 tailwind, nailed the board. I reckon I had 1 centimetre to spare on the board, and the jump just felt effortless. Like, it was just crazy how great it felt. And I hopped out of the pit and I just knew to myself that it was a really good jump, and I looked at Dad and I could tell that he was like stoked with it. And then I just burst into tears when they read out that I'd jumped 7:05, because I think I didn't expect to have jumped those sort of distances that early on in my career. And it just goes to show that if you can get everything right, you never know what could happen.
How early in a jump do you know that you've nailed this one?
Oh, it's not really until you're like in the air. I think, the transition from your run to takeoff sort of gives you a good idea of how good the jump's going to be. So when I was in the air, I knew that this was going to be really good. But obviously you do have to finish off the jump. So, it was just the perfect jump, really. My speed was really good on the runway. We had some biomechanists testing the velocities on the runway, and they were fantastic for me personally. And as I said, nailed the board and just flew.
Yep. Are those biochemists AA Athletics Australia supplied, or VIS, or Australian
I think they might have been QAS.
Okay. Yeah. And so I guess thinking of maybe team sports, they have a number of coaches and staff that analyse every aspect of the game. Do you know, coming off that jump, where I guess you could probably improve to further it, or what you need to do to, I guess, hit that exact same distance again? Yeah,
well, I think with long jump, speed on the runway is so important. That sets you up for your jump. The more speed you have behind you, the more momentum you have going into the jump. So you don't have to be the best jumper technically, but if you've got speed behind you, like, you're going to go far. So I think with me just trying to improve my speed, even if it's, very slight, it'd make a big difference. And I can also, keep improving my takeoff position, just making sure I'm taking off nice and upright. Got my takeoff leg underneath my body, not, sticking it out in front, losing speed that way. I think technically my jump is pretty solid. So, I think for me, just, strength, power and speed. You train and compete overseas quite a bit. We've mentioned it a couple of times. What are the reasons why an Australian track and field athlete, for those listening at home, do you go over and compete internationally? Well, the number one reason is just to be able to compete against the best long jumpers in the world. In Australia, we've got our summer season. There's also nothing really offered over winter besides a few competitions in Queensland. So the only way we can really compete leading into a major championships is by going away and chasing competitions overseas against high quality competition. It's also a good way to escape Melbourne's winter as well. It does get very tough training in this weather, especially being a long jumper. You can't just go out and run 10Ks and, keep yourself nice and warm. You'll have a jump, you'll have to recover before your next jump, so you stand around waiting. So you do get cold and you do get stiff. But it's definitely, being overseas, having access to fantastic facilities that they offer, specifically in Europe. It's great weather and there's always some big competitions over there.
So outside of the pure athletics related things, so what challenges going overseas presents its own kind of challenges just on a holiday.
Yeah.
So how do you manage things like finding food, places to train, just the complexities of getting on public transport or not living at home? How do you manage that?
I do struggle a lot. I find just travel in general extremely draining. So recently when I did head over to Europe in July, just the flight over, it just takes so much out of you. And you really do need a good 7 days, I think, to get over the jet lag. So you have to make sure that you give yourself enough time to get over the jet lag before you start competing. And I learnt that, you need about 7 days. Finding food, that's difficult. Being a celiac, trying to read food labels when they're not in English, it gets very challenging. There's a lot of challenges, and just coming from Melbourne's winter to a warmer climate, it takes a little bit of time to acclimatise, and just obviously changing time zones as well.
Do you travel with other athletes or father, parents, siblings?
Generally, I'll travel with my dad, my coach. None of my squad members are at the same sort of level that I'm at, so I can't actually travel away with them. Generally there'll be some other Australian athletes at the same sort of base where I'll be training, which is really good. Generally it's just with my dad, or sometimes my partner Nathan will come over with me as well, which is handy.
And when you say bases, what are those? Are they AIS related?
So recently I did spend a bit of time in Gavarati in Italy, which is where the AIS is, the European training base. So they have fantastic facilities over there. There's a track, they've got a gym, they've got physios, massage therapists. It's absolutely fantastic. So I was spending a bit of time basing in different places, but I think this has everything super close and it's got everything you need. So I think that that's going to be where I'll base in the future.
And how long would you generally spend, say, in Europe?
For me, I know it sounds crazy, but I generally like to split my European season up, so I'm not staying away for too long, because I tend to get over it very quickly and I struggle being a celiac as well. So I'd rather break it up into 2 smaller trips. So in 2017, I spent 6 weeks away, which for me, I was just super ready to come home. So anywhere from, say, 3 to 4 weeks is what generally I feel like I can tolerate pretty well. This time round, I'm going to be spending 6 weeks away, so hopefully I'll be all right.
And you've just gotten back from competing overseas?
Yes. So I just had a 3-week stint over in Europe, had 3 competitions over there.
So you do spend a fair bit of time over in Europe.
Yeah.
So Rio Olympic Games, I guess the pinnacle of our sport, of athletics. It's what gets the majority of the media attention, the general public's attention. You made the 2016 Rio Olympic Games. Talk us through the process to being selected, and when you, I guess, confirmed your spot. What was that feeling like?
Yeah, so the qualifying process, they had a qualifying standard, and from memory that was 6 meters 70. So basically, if you achieve that mark and placed in the top 3 at the Australian Championships, you were secured a spot on the Olympic team. I jumped over that distance several times during the season, and I won the Australian Championships in 2016. So I was selected in the team, and It was a dream come true. It was something that I dreamt towards. I was getting to that level since I was in grade 1. So it was absolutely surreal, and I think it's so special when you have a goal for so long and you finally achieve it. It just makes everything so rewarding, and even more special that I could experience that with my dad, who was my coach.
And from the moment, I presume it was the Australian Championships that you knew that you had probably secured a spot there to the start of the Olympic Games. Did anything change? How did you go about, I guess, preparing for that meet? Do you remember anything?
Not really a lot changed, but I did start feeling a bit of pressure. Having jumped 7:05 during the 2016 season, people started talking about medals, and jumping that sort of distance would be enough to win a medal. And I don't think I handled that very well. It did put these expectations on me that I sort of wish I didn't have. But in saying that, it was, I think coming back from, jumping 7:05, I was consistently jumping in the 670s leading into Rio. But I think, it was just a huge learning experience, if anything, and just, nothing really changed between Nationals and Rio. I spent a little bit of time overseas just trying to get a little bit more exposure competing at that world level, because I'd only really competed at the World Championships. So I think that helped a lot, just competing against the best long jumpers in the world in a few competitions in Europe in the lead into Rio. I think my confidence was where it needed to be, and I think that's a huge factor in performing well.
So talk us through the Olympic Games experience. So how early, I guess, do you arrive as a team together? I think there's a pre-camp in a country nearby.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Talk us through that experience not necessarily just the competition, but the whole experience of the Olympic Games.
Yeah, so it was a little bit unfortunate because we weren't actually in the athletes' village yet when the opening ceremony was on. So we actually missed the opening ceremony because we were in our pre-camp in Florida. That was a bit disappointing because I feel like that would have been unreal. I think we went in 3 different waves into Rio from this camp. And I think I would have arrived into Rio about a week before I competed. So we were based in Florida, so I'm not exactly sure how long that flight was, but I don't think it was too long. Got into the village, and it was just a crazy experience, like walking past, people that you see on TV and people that are just like, absolute superstars of their sport. It was absolutely crazy. And just walking into the athletics track as well, I was so emotional. Like, I felt like I was going to burst into tears because it just brings back all those tough sessions that you just grinded through because you wanted to get to that level. And it was just like, whoa, I'm here. Like, it was just absolutely crazy.
And so you were 23 years old when you competed at Rio, finished 7th.
Yep.
So a phenomenal performance, 6:74. The competition must have been something else.
Yeah. Oh, it was absolutely crazy. The top girls jumped really well. So for me to have, been amongst the medals, I would have had to have jumped a PB, I'm pretty sure, or my PB would have got me 3rd place. So, so it was a lot to ask. And I think, having jumped 7:05 once, I think people just think that you can do it all the time, but it's definitely not that easy. Like, all the stars have to align for you to be at your best. Just to have placed 7th, like, in my first Olympics, I couldn't have asked for more. And although, like, I wish I did jump a bit further, I was still extremely happy. And to have been an Olympic finalist, it's something really cool.
And how did you go about coping with all the external factors that would come along, no doubt, with an Olympic game like event, cameras in your face, I presume probably an extended call room, all that kind of thing.
I think I dealt with it okay. I guess.
Do you get much guidance around? Sorry, do you get much guidance around what to expect?
Not exactly, but I guess like it probably wasn't that much different to competing at the World Championships the year before. I think there's just more sort of. I feel like there's more expectations, if anything, just from the general sort of population. You're at Olympic Games, everyone sort of just says to you like, oh, bring home gold, or bring home a medal, blah, blah, blah.
You mean you didn't win at the Olympic Games?
Yeah. And then you'll tell people that you came 7th and they'll be like, oh, that's all right. And I'll be like, yeah, I think it's more than all right, but whatever. So yeah, it's just a matter of, I guess the more that you experience these big competitions, the more that, you get used to having media in your face and, having that external pressure.
Having to do podcasts.
Yeah.
So fast forward 2 years from that point onwards, we had, or last year, the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games, a home Commonwealth Games. So another event that does spike the interest of the general population. What do you remember about our home games, and what was so special for you?
Well, back in towards the end of 2017, I actually had a foot injury that it sort of made me question whether I was actually going to be able to get to the Commonwealth Games. I had a stress fracture in my sesamoid bone, like in my big toe, and it was an injury that I had to be extremely careful with because these bones can crumble. So I had to take a lot of time off with this injury, and that really pushed back my preparations towards the Commonwealth Games, which was really tough. And it did put all this pressure on myself because I wanted to be at these games and I wanted to be there at my best so I could, do myself and Australia proud. So it was just being able to get to the Commonwealth Games in itself was extremely special for me. But being at home Commonwealth Games, that was something else. The crowd just went mental. Every time an Aussie would, step onto the field or, would be in a race doing well, it was just deafening. And being an Australian athlete, we don't really ever get to compete with crowds that big. So, I think it definitely spurred a lot of us Aussies along. We had some fantastic performances. So I don't think, unfortunately, I'm going to be able to experience another home games. But I definitely feel like I made the most of it, and to have been able to bring home a silver medal with all my close friends and family in the crowd. It was an amazing, amazing day.
So you finished second with a 6.77.
Yeah.
So do you remember that jump?
It was actually my last jump. So I think I was sitting equal third. Oh, wait, no, equal. No, I must have been sitting third, sorry, on a count back. Actually, no, I think I was sitting second. I don't even know, to be honest.
I think there was a big lead change in the 5th round.
Yeah, I think in the 5th round I might have jumped a 6.74 and put myself into second. But then, obviously my last jump, I wanted to, jump a little bit further. And I remember I hopped out of the pit and I was like, I hope that's enough to take the lead. But unfortunately I was 7 centimetres short from the winner, Christabel Nettie, Canadian. But silver medal at a Commonwealth Games, can't complain with that.
And what did you learn from events like Rio or other World Championships that you could bring into the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games?
I think the biggest thing that I learned is that I can match it with the best jumpers in the world. And with that comes confidence. So just believing in myself and backing myself, knowing that, if I can jump well, I'll be up there with the best women in the world. So, I think for me, just learning to believe in myself and be confident, and I think that definitely goes a long way.
What would be the biggest highest point in your career that you think to date?
That's a really good question, because breaking the Australian record is something that sits extremely high. But I feel like coming 7th at the Olympics, making an Olympic final, would probably be the highest part of my career so far. But then I don't know if a silver at the Commonwealth Games.
You've got a few.
Yeah, it's definitely one out of those three. But I feel like, just being able to call myself an Olympian and having placed 7th or made a final at Olympic Games, I think that probably would have to be number one, I'd say.
And you had a number of injuries, especially leading into some of these major competitions. Was that the hardest part of your career to date to deal with? Have they been?
Yeah, definitely. I guess, like, for me, I did have a few health issues back when I was a little bit younger, before I was diagnosed with celiac disease. So that was, like, extremely frustrating. But for me, these injuries, it definitely really gets you mentally. And I really struggled through my most recent couple of injuries, the bone stress in my cuboid and stress fracture in my sesamoid. I don't know why I struggled so much, but it really did take its toll on me mentally. And I think it's because, you're so used to competing at your best and, going out there and just being able to enjoy what you do, and then you're stuck in a pool for 7 weeks swimming every day. It's not what you want to be doing, and I found it really hard. And just coming back from the injuries as well, it's a long process. And I feel like for me, I'm quite a natural long jumper, so it doesn't take long for me to be able to get myself into reasonable shape and just get the feel back from jumping. But, building your strength back, building your speed back, like, there's a lot of things that, you have to consider when you're coming back from an injury, and then also making sure that you're not doing too much too soon. You got to make sure that you're slowly easing things back and slowly reintroducing different things into your training. But it's just, I think you just got to surround yourself with people that are going to support you and lift you up through the tough times, and you just got to remember that they're not going to last forever. And I think the good times outweigh the bad times, and the injuries make the good times, that little bit more special.
And do you think, hopefully a long time into the future, you'll look back on different injuries and think that they have played a part in, I guess, your in the successes that you've had? Yeah,
definitely. I think they make you stronger as an athlete, having injuries and just, being able to come back from these injuries, being resilient, doing all the little things that are going to put you in good stead of, getting back onto the runway sooner rather than later. You just got to do all the right things. And at the end of the day, every athlete deals with injuries, and it's just a part of sport.
And the next major championship event is the IAAF World Championships in Doha.
Yep.
Is that your next immediate, I guess, goal?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll have a couple of competitions leading into Doha. But that's the focus for me at the moment. And I'm just trying to do everything in my power to make sure that I get to Doha and I step on the runway in the best possible shape that I can.
And then you have the next Olympic Games, so in Tokyo next year. What's the process? Is the process much the same there for what it was in Rio? I know there's been sort of point systems and things introduced at the IAAF level, but is the process of qualifying for an Olympic Games much the same?
I think besides the points system, everything else is very similar. There is also a qualifying standard as well, which is 6 meters 82 for the women's long jump. So hopefully, all being well, if I can jump that distance or above that distance, and place in the top 3 at the Australian Champs next year, I should be hopefully selected to compete in my second Olympic Games.
And is it much the same, weekly process going into or preparing for something like that as it was a few years ago?
Obviously my training's changed slightly. I feel, if anything, I've stepped up my training volume a little bit, which hopefully, being a bit older, being a bit stronger, it's all going to help and be beneficial. So, nothing really will change. It's going to be an interesting year, I guess, trying to peak for the Australian season or for the Australian Championships, and then peaking again in July after this year having a major championships in October. It's not the biggest turnaround until Tokyo, but I think, just got to have a good plan in place and make sure, I'm not competing too much and I'm getting the training in where I can.
Last 2 questions. Yep. Where would you like to see the sport of athletics head in the future? So in 10 years' time, is there one thing you would like athletics to look like?
I feel like just having bigger crowds, I think that would be absolutely fantastic. Having more people take interest in the sport, because, there's so many incredible athletes in Australia that people wouldn't even know about. So I think, whether it means like street meets or street competitions, getting more of the public involved in our sport and, just giving it the exposure it needs, I think.
Bring the athletes to the people.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you go to an AFL game and there's thousands and thousands of people there supporting these footballers, and it'd just be fantastic if, one day we could get more people in the crowds at athletics competitions.
And we'll try and get as many little athletics families along to these meets as possible. But you're quite a big name, I guess, in athletics in this country. You definitely do a lot for little athletics here in Victoria, and there would be a number, if not hundreds, of athletes that sort of look up to you. What would you tell any little athlete that is maybe looking to pursue the same sort of journey as what you have?
Never give up and just follow your dreams. If you've got a dream, just do everything in your power to try and make that dream a reality. I started off as a 5-year-old, had no idea that I had the talent and potential that I did, but I worked super hard over the years, and I had this dream in the back of my mind to get to this Olympic level, and every day I thought about it, set goals and write them down, and just keep a clear focus of where you want to be. And most of all, have fun. Just enjoy it. Especially at a young age, like, you don't want to put pressure on yourself. You just want to, go to little athletics and have fun with your friends.
Well, thank you. Thanks for sitting down and talking with us for this hour. And no doubt after your training session, you want to go and recover and get home and enjoy the rest of the day. So that's all the time we've got on the Athletics Journey podcast. Thanks, Brooke, for speaking with us and providing us with some unique insights on your journey so far. You can stay up to date with Brooke's progress by following her online, which we'll provide links to in the description. If you would like what you've heard, be sure to subscribe now on your favourite podcast app to make sure you don't miss out what we have in store.